welcome to another episode of Don't Quote Us. I'm Jeremy.
My name's Steve.
And I'm Chad.
And today we're going to talk about what makes a good heist video and heist movie. And I'm going to turn it over to Chad. He's going to drive the show.
So for a good heist movie, and we've talked in one of our previous videos about our favorite movies, and heist movies came up and got talked about a bit, so we thought, yeah, let's delve into it. So I did a lot of research, watched a lot of movies this week, and basically came down to 5 criteria that I think makes a really good heist movie. We're going to talk, I'm just going to go through the list here real quick, and then we're going to delve into each of them a little bit more. So the 5 top things, in my opinion, for a really good heist movie. 1, you need a challenging score. It's got to be a really good take. 2, good characters with unique skills. 3, you've got to have a strong motivation. 4, a good twist and or complications. And 5, plausibility. So let's start with the first one, a challenging score. Now, we've both talked, and I think we're going to talk probably, using our examples, a lot is probably going to be the Oceans movies, because a lot of people have seen them.
Yeah,
we've got
very
three movies to go off of in there, so there's a lot of material. We'll reference some other ones as well, but I think the Oceans are probably going to be our major reference points. So in all 3 of the Oceans movies, they've all got big scores.
Yes, big scores.
I mean, even in the 4th one, in Oceans 8, well,
Yep.
primarily we're going to talk about the original Oceans trilogy with George Clooney. Again, I haven't seen Oceans 8 yet. I know you have.
Yep.
I haven't, so I can't speak to that one. So primarily we're going to reference the original Oceans trilogy, 11, 12, and 13. So, but all 3 of them have really, really big scores that they're going for.
Yeah, epic scores that they're going for. They are big deals. You can literally see as it's set up like, oh, this is not going to be easy. And what I will also say is the reason why I think Oceans 11, 12, and 13 are really good because they are in a modern day sense. So I will say in the Oceans 11 movies, it's a little bit dated in terms of they still have cell phones and everything.
Sure.
But it's not like up-to-date cell phones where it's like a smartphone, where I think that adds another element because it's another form of technology.
Of course.
But that does get addressed in Oceans 13 a little bit more. So
yes.
I think Oceans 11, if you're going to dive into that heist movie, you also have to realize it was a little bit of a different time. Not much of a different time. Now again,
Of course.
I mean, that movie came out...
Ooh, mid-2000s?
2004-ish, right around there.
We'll look it up.
We'll look it up. Don't quote us. As always, don't quote us.
Yeah.
But, I mean...
Is it time for another remake?
Oh, man. No, I don't think so. I think they really did hit it really well. But absolutely, epic scores across the board in all 3. The first one, they were actually stealing from a casino owner. Again, not a spoiler. This is actually a remake of a movie that already came out that Frank Sinatra was in. Now, Oceans 12, it's a little bit of a different score. It's still going to be very tough to get.
Okay, but actually, if you really want to go on it, the final score of what they're trying to get in Oceans 12 potentially is bigger than the other 2. I mean, it's the Fabergé egg. That is technically priceless.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I really don't think there's anything much more to say other than that. Other than the tone this wasn't as epic, I feel.
No.
Right? Like it wasn't... The tone set in number 1 versus number 2. I want to say in number 1 they were on the offensive versus Oceans 12. They were
very much defensive.
They were very defensive in terms of how the heist was going to go.
Yes.
So I think that really does set the tone and versus what the end all goal the end goal will be. For Oceans 12, I want to say the main objective was to not get caught, not go to jail, not get killed, versus Oceans 11
it was to get out of debt, essentially, because
but if they were going to remain in debt, A, B, and C were probably going to happen, more or less. Now in Oceans 11 it was, this is the gigantic score, and granted at the time we didn't know there was going to be an Oceans 12 or 13.
Correct.
This was going to be, I mean, the quote-unquote fairy tale ending for a bunch of lifelong criminals. I mean,
and they all were going their separate ways at the end of 11. I know 11, so they all went their separate ways, and they weren't going to speak to each other again or anything.
And they had even addressed that a little bit in the beginning. And it's true, because if you look at that, they all talk about it during Ocean's 11, that this is the big score, this is the last one. And of course, if it's the beginning of a series, you're going to potentially treat it that way. Look at a number of movies, and we're going to do a slight segue here. You've got a number of movies that yes, you've got a lot of movies that the first one is a completely self-contained story. Look at Matrix 1, look at Star Wars Episode 4, look at a number of movies like that that are the first of a trilogy, and you'll find that that first movie is a complete and self-contained story. Because if it doesn't succeed, there's not going to be the rest of the trilogy. So it needs to be a self-contained story, and that's what they did with Ocean's 11. Now, 12 and 13, they are also self-contained stories, but you can't go and really watch 12 without having seen 11. But 12 in itself is self-contained but reliant upon 11. 13 is self-contained in and of itself, but again, reliant not on 12, but 11, though there's some tie-ins to 12
Well, it's
as
a revenge story, is what 13 essentially is.
It is a revenge story, but there is some tie-ins. There's character. There's the sort of penultimate villain in 12 does show up at one part in 13.
Oh. Yeah, I was just thinking in my head, and I was going to ask you guys, but I think I already know the answer, is could you watch these movies without seeing Ocean's 11? Can you? Yes. Will you have the same experience as...
All your intros are in 11. I mean, that's where you meet the characters, you get the personalities, you get the relationships and all of that. And yeah, if you don't have that, yeah, you can still follow it, I think, but... So, and this is a perfect point to start talking about our second point, which is good characters with unique skills. Yeah. And because of the fact with those Ocean movies, you have incredible characters. The first movie, there's not a lot of character building. I mean, they do flesh out those characters, but there's not development in those characters. You start seeing that development happen more so in number 2, where Rusty, Brad Pitt's character, they do a lot of development with him. If they developed anybody in the first movie, it was Danny Ocean, George Clooney's character. Because really the focus on it, he is, even in that ensemble cast, he's the head guy. So they talk about his former relationship with Tess. A lot of it, of course, and this will coming in and eventually into motive factors on these movies, is that it's not just the money, it's a little bit of a revenge thing in there for him too. But they do that character development.
Which that revenge aspect does play a vital role in that, because at a certain point George Clooney does a certain thing.
We have spoilers.
You can, but if you have never seen the movie, and I'm okay with dropping spoilers and everything like that, as we've talked in other. This movie, in my opinion, if you've never seen it, I think you're doing yourself a disservice if you are a fan of movies by not. Now, you could also say, like, it's not my type of movie. That's the way I felt, because I saw this first off with my grandmother. Like, she had this movie because it was a remake of a movie she saw. Okay. So
of an old school Frank Sinatra Rat Pack movie.
Yes. So I watched it and I was like, what did I just watch? Because it's one of those movies where at the very end, and we're going to talk a little bit about this, because at the very end there is a twist.
Yes.
Now, with that, it's like, wait a minute, what just happened? Because I want to say it's just like a boxing match. We're going to set you up with that left, and then we're going to come across with that knockout finisher. Okay. And that's the way every Oceans 11, 12, and 13 all end with that knockout punch. I think 11 does it the best. 12 does it the weakest, but that's not saying that it's a bad movie at all.
No, it's not.
I mean, that's just saying it's the weakest out of 3, but the 3 great movies. Yes. So, and then in my opinion, third is the triumphant. I thought they culminated so well, where we all seen it. Third movie in, sometimes you lose that momentum. Sometimes you like,
and
what?
They didn't.
What else can you really throw at us? And I mean, the third setting is still, it's back in Vegas, just like in Ocean's 11. So you're even taking us back to the same place. But the great thing about it is there was so much time between 11 and 13 that 13 felt like, oh, this is a newer Vegas. This isn't, the classic
technology. It's a new casino. Yeah. It's a brand new opening casino.
With the latest technology, security.
Yes.
Well, very much the latest security.
So
that's
one of
the major complications.
Yes. Exactly. So when it comes down to it, the characters are all going to stay the same, but you will see certain developments. But I think we alluded it to earlier that these are, career criminals. They've been doing this forever, and in fact, I want to say Basher, the he basically handles all the explosives and everything.
Yes.
He actually says to Rusty, Brad Pitt's character, it's going to feel good again working with proper criminals. They've done this before. They've had interactions before. And I want to say this movie is a lot like building a fantasy football or fantasy anything team where they're going through where George Clooney's like, oh, what about this person? Oh, he's dead. What about this person? Oh, he's in jail.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Now, there is one character, though, that has very little experience in the beginning of the first movie, and that's Matt Damon's character, Linus.
Yep.
And it's fascinating to watch him through the 3 movies in his growth. It's also interesting because in 12, there's a character from his past that shows up in there, and then there's another character from his past that shows up in 13. So they sort of build that in there. And his development arc is over those 3 movies. And they do it slowly and gradually, and you don't really get the full extent of it until you've watched all 3 movies.
I really do think that if you're going to decide to do Ocean's 11, now let's be honest, in today's day of Netflix, Hulu, we always want to pick a season where it's got maybe 1 or 2 seasons in, right?
Sure.
We want a little bit of run room because we're probably going to binge this out. So if you're going to binge watch 3 sets of movies, 3 movies, 11, 12, and 13, I don't think you could pick a better trifecta right there.
Right.
And I mean that they're still going to lock you in and you'll see the development. And what I also want to say is there's little one-liners that you will absolutely miss, even if this is the first time you've seen it, even if you've seen it a second or third time, because as I went back and watched them, just like Chad did this week, I'm like, oh, I remember this. Or there's certain little things, especially with the Mormon brothers in 11, where they have nitpicky brother fights. Mm-hmm. And I have a little brother.
All 3 of the movies.
And I have a little brother, and this is what I'm like. These guys are absolute brothers. Like they really. I mean, from the moment you first see them, they're doing brother stuff.
Oh yeah.
I mean, again, you have to have quirky characters, and rest in peace, Bernie Mac.
I was gonna say, what is he in the 3rd one even?
Oh yeah.
Oh, he was alive for the 3rd
one?
Okay.
And
yeah.
I didn't want to, segue too much, but
no, and I think Bernie Mac's character. Could you imagine it without him? I mean,
he's basically their confidence man.
Without Bernie, he is absolutely a confidence man. I couldn't agree more, but I also like what you said about Matt Damon's character. Now, I would say he's maybe the 3rd most important-ish. He dabbles. He is incredibly important throughout every single movie.
Well, he has the extra batteries in the first one.
If you have not seen this movie,
it's a great moment.
There are little moments like that throughout the entire thing. And like Chad said, Matt Damon has a character that comes in the 2nd, and then that explains a little bit more. And then in the 3rd, it explains it kind of fully.
Oh, yes.
And it really does hit you. And I think that's what the great thing about these movies is. They're quirky characters that absolutely rock. And we're not even talking about 7 or 6 of the other, members.
What about Yen, who only speaks for the most part Chinese, except for his occasional one-liners in English?
And they're usually curse words.
Yes.
Usually curse words.
Yes. Yes, but he always speaks Chinese. Everybody understands him and responds back to him in English, and he understands it and speaks to them in Chinese. It's just the quirky dynamic. And most of the time, through a number of the movies, they don't necessarily subtitle and tell you what he's saying.
In fact, I don't think they subtitle him at all. But in response to what the other characters say, you're like, oh, yeah, I know exactly what he said.
So let me ask you a question here. Since we're talking about good characters and stuff, is there a heist movie you know of that has horrible characters and it makes the movie not work because the characters come across as two-dimensional or fake?
Actually, I can speak to that one a bit. This week I watched, and it's not a bad heist movie, but I found the characters to be lackluster, was another Soderbergh movie. It's Logan Lucky. And overall, it's a good heist movie, and it definitely feels like a Soderbergh heist movie. And I believe Soderbergh is the one who did all of the Ocean's movies.
Yeah, okay.
And it feels similar, but the characters are not that interesting. They're just not. I mean, even Daniel Craig, who is...
I'm not disagreeing with anything Chad's saying.
Even Daniel Craig, who is probably the most interesting character in the movie, and he did a great job playing a sort of redneck explosions expert. He's the most interesting character on the screen, and he's still not that interesting. It's a good heist movie, and it does have a lot of the different things in here. There is a challenging score. There are unique characters. There is the motivation. There's all the twists and the plausibility. It's all there. There's even a kind of a cool chemistry lesson that sort of kind of works, not quite, that they Hollywooded it a bit, and that's fine. But it's all there. The characters just aren't that interesting. If they had created better characters for it, this had the possibility to be up there with Oceans. But the characters are just kind of bland.
They're bland.
And this is where I want to dive kind of into a different pool, and I know I talk about this one, but Smoking the Bandit. So this is an old school heist movie, and to my opinion, this is an absolute heist movie because you have somebody who's a very interesting character. You're getting a Burt Reynolds character that, first and foremost, has a reputation behind him. Sure. He does what he needs to do. Snowman, his counterpart, I can't remember. He's a famous country singer and everything like that. Oh, it's gonna bug me that I can't remember his name.
That's what IMDb is for.
And I know Jeremy. He's gonna probably put it at the very end or a clip or something.
It'll be here.
Yes, it'll be something cool. So he's an interesting character. He's got a dog with him. Like, come on, we're here. And then again, the villain. And I think this isn't something we've hit on yet. The villain in these movies has to be somebody of note, has to be somebody of power,
formidable.
Formidable.
Not every heist movie has a villain. Logan Lucky has no villain.
And I think that's kind of why the reason I brought in Smoking the Bandit is obviously a completely different movie than Oceans, because there's really not much of a twist in Smoking the Bandit at the very end, how they kind of get away and everything. It kind of works. But there's not really a full twist like in Oceans where it's like, oh, I got the knockout punch. Smoking the Bandit is just a classic, old school heist movie. Let's get the beer across. Let's get it to Big Enos and Little Enos, which they're not villains, but I think are interesting characters nonetheless. Again, you got to have interesting characters. And then Sally Field coming in, involved in everything, the whole bride, and that's the reason why Jackie Gleason gets involved. And I really do believe all of these characters are leading towards this end-all good result. And if you don't have these characters, like Oceans, like Smoking the Bandit, you're not going to have that emotional tie, because when it comes down to the big score, there's always that bad thing that happens, right? They get a little sucker, punch to the gut, and it's like, is this really going to work? If you don't have those characters, it's like, why do I care about it?
Well, it's not just that. You can have good characters, but this will lead us right into our third point. You've got to have a solid motivation for doing what you're doing. Now, I read some stuff online that they said that if you have a completely selfless thief that's doing something so that little Timmy that he doesn't know can get his heart operation. Really?
Yeah.
I mean, you can go with a Robin Hood, plot. You can do that. But it's got to be something personal. It can't be little Timmy that he doesn't know. It would need to be, Robin Hood's kid. It would have to be his daughter or his son that's, it's got to be Tiny Tim here that's going to die and needs that operation.
Or nephew, and his father died, and he's the one taking care of him.
Yes.
There's a million different ways you can really shape it. So.
I mean, but in that respect, Smoking the Bandit's really a shallow motive. It's money.
But it's money, it's reputation, and like Smoking Bandit says, we're doing it for the fun, we're doing it for reputation, we're doing it for the money.
And that doesn't always mean that every single movie has to have every single one of these in perfect equal amounts. Some are going to be lacking. Right. That's simply going to happen. Some are going to be stronger than other things. Like I said, Logan Lucky didn't really have a villain. The motivation on that one was definitely a lot less. They focused more on other things. The motivation was just someone who was kind of down on his luck, got laid off, his wife has remarried, is going to move away, and he wants money to get a lawyer so he doesn't lose his kid. It's not a huge motivation. It's smaller and simpler.
But let me ask, what I'm noticing with you guys talking, because I don't, I haven't watched them and gotten as deep as you guys are, but in the heist movies, it's almost like a Breaking Bad situation where you're rooting for the bad guy in a way.
Very much
so. Jackie Gleason, the cop trying to do his job, and what do you root for? You root for the criminal trying to help smuggle alcohol.
No matter what heist
movie, same thing.
No matter what heist movie you're watching, you are rooting for the criminal. But
so they're anti-heroes. Really, they're the anti-hero kind of thing. Okay,
but it also feels good to root for that, because I guess in the grand scheme of things, I'm watching a movie. I know that in today's society and everything, again, I'm on the good guys team, right? Like, I'm happy that I'm safe because police are around and everything like that. But in the movie sense, just like in video games, like in Far Cry, I know I'm not going to throw a Molotov cocktail into a field and turn a bunch of cows into flaming fireballs. No. I'm not going to do that in real life. But in Far Cry 5,
in the game,
I'm going to do that and just like, oh, this is what happens. Okay, cool. I'm moving on with life.
And that's really important, it looks like, with the director and stuff. They have to make the bad guys likable and the good guys not likable.
Exactly. You have to have the characters, which I think, again, if you don't have the characters, I think you have a lot like Logan's Lucky, where, is it okay? It's an okay movie. I'm not upset that I watched it, you know, unlike Mortal Engines, like Chad. I know. Yes. You got to watch our last video and see his reaction. But
let's not go there.
But Logan, it's a lesser of the movies. But again, I will also say this. Oceans 11, 12, and 13, I think they're very interesting. I would say they're reasonably fun. Yes. But I would say like Smokey and the Bandit, like you said, the motivation isn't necessarily there. I say it's a very fun movie. You got cars flying left and right. He's tricking cops. This is in a day and age where radio is the most advanced piece of technology, which cut down on a lot of bootlegging, a lot of heists and everything. But I mean, again, they fleshed out the characters so well. So you got to have a score. You got to have characters.
Yeah. Now, the one movie that I will say I think of the heist movies that I think has one of the best motivations, that's going to be the remake of The Italian Job with Mark Wahlberg. I think that one has an exceptional motive. It's not just money, it is revenge.
Personal, and it's revenge,
It's very personal.
Yeah. Well, revenge seems to be a topic of a lot of these. Ocean's 11 it's personal.
I think you need to have the revenge as a specific spot, though. I think you can't just throw revenge in there because why would I care if you're trying to get vengeance on somebody if it has nothing to do with me? If I'm not invested in with everything, it's well, you got what came to you. Like I don't care that it is what it is. But the fact is, it's like, oh, that's some BS. Like if that happened to me, that's how you reacted, man. I would have reacted 10 times worse. Right. And you're like, I got to see how this unfolds. So I think that's the reason why Ocean's 13 works so well. Like we said, 11, offensive, 12, defensive, and I do think this is a different movie overall. Revenge. I really do. So, what is next on our list?
Yeah. The next one here is basically a good heist movie needs a good twist and or complications to that heist.
Okay, now let me ask you on the twist. Does the twist has to be believable, right?
Well, of course.
The audience has to buy it, but they also have to have had a chance to maybe catch pieces of it and anticipate it.
Now,
versus I was gonna say versus something like Now You See Me.
Yes. Now
the Blind Side, you know, if you want to call it that.
The first Now You See Me is overall a fun heist movie, and it is a heist movie.
Oh yeah.
Because they are stealing things in each of their major performances. They are stealing, or at least showing that they've stolen something. Mm-hmm. Through the entire movie, you wind up following a particular character, and there's a twist at the end that, frankly, is crap. Because you're given no information during the course of the movie to know what this twist is. And it's huge. Oh, it is massive.
To me, it goes beyond that. It's almost contradictory information.
Very much so.
It's almost like they're leading you left, and then they're going right.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's...
I think that element is crucial. Now, if you don't pull that off, I think that's where the heist movie kind of unfolds, because
everybody starts going BS.
Well, and like I said, Smokey and the Bandit really doesn't have a big twist. So, okay, this is also a movie that is 40 years old, if not a little bit more. So I don't mind talking about it. The twist at the very end, there's really not much of one. So how he gets away, he drops off a semi that they have visually seen him with the entire time. He gets rid of his car. And then he hops into a Cadillac that is completely different. Now again, there's no cameras on any sides of the streets. Mm-hmm. There's no video cameras on phones. Again, this is a different day and age where radio, actual CB radio, is the most important or the most up-to-date piece of technology. So that's the twist where he gets away. And that sets up Bandit 2, Bandit 3. Now again, I'm not going to get super involved because they are older movies. Mm-hmm. And those movies, they're end up heist movies, but still kind of not really. But that's the reason why I focus solely on Smokey and the Bandit 1. Now, not a whole lot of twists there. And that's why I think Oceans 11, 12, and 13 are the basis of our conversation, because the twist. Like I said,
single one.
It's a knockout punch, because throughout the entire movie, and I think as movie goers, even if you're not a regular movie goer, you start to anticipate.
Yes.
Because there is usually a formula that comes down to it. Action movies are super simple. We talked about it, right?
Sure.
Something bad happens, it causes that person to become a superhero action star, so on and so forth. They end up beefing themselves up. They get knocked down to the point of either death or completely they want to, be done, and then they end up finishing it off. That's the whole. I mean, that's everything George Lucas did. I mean, that is not new in books. That's the way it is. It's the classic action character. Hero's journey. Thank you, Jim. That's what I was going for. Classic hero's journey. Now, with 11, 12, and 13, you're going through, and then you're seeing what they want you to see.
Yes.
And then they let everything unfold, and you're like,
yep.
Oh, I remember that, but this is what was going on over here.
Yes.
And like I was saying, it's a knockout punch. It's the rope-a-dope. It's going to give you that.
But it's not contradictory.
No.
It's very much something they just weren't giving you all the information. Versus giving you false information like Now You See Me.
They're not lying to you. They're just not telling you the full story.
Yeah.
Correct.
And they tried it with Now You See Me. I think they honestly were trying to do we gotcha kind of thing, but it came across like such utter BS. Done. It was just too much stuff that if you see it, you'll understand. It's too much that says, no way.
But, all that being said, Now You See Me, and even Now You See Me 2, are worth seeing. They are still fun movies. Even with the utter BS twist at the end, which in our discussions we've had previously before, not on any of the previous videos, but we've talked about it.
Definitely.
Kind of destroyed the movie in some regards.
Left you with a bad aftertaste.
It does. But it's still worth watching.
I think all the movies we've talked about are worth watching.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. If you're looking for just something
it's an exciting journey.
Yeah, I think the journey-wise, like I said, if you're going to binge the Ocean's movie, feel free. But I think Now You See Me, Smoking the Bandit, like I said, it's old school. You can find it just about anywhere. Even Logan's Lucky. I think all of these are absolutely worth watching. We're just being super critical about them because, again, this is specific about heist movies. And, again, we want you to be fully informed just in case you know nothing about heist movies and you want to start diving into it.
I'm learning a lot myself.
I have no doubt. And I think that, besides the good twist, I think we need to
talk about our last point, which is plausibility, which is pretty important. Almost every single one of these heist movies, with the exception of one of our previous videos, you talked about Solo.
Yes.
As a heist movie, which I have now seen, and it's a decent heist movie. The heist is definitely more subgenre for it.
Very much.
It's a Star Wars movie first and foremost, subgenre heist. Still good. But the heist, for whatever they're doing, has to be plausible. Solo gets a pass on whatever they want to do in terms of plausibility because it's Star Wars and sci-fi. So they can pull all sorts of things in it. It doesn't matter because it's sci-fi. They can say, oh, it's Star Wars. It's something we haven't talked about yet, or physics, or
It's midichlorians.
Sure.
Yep.
It's a galaxy. It's a long time ago in a galaxy far away. Let it go.
Yeah. But a good heist movie has to be plausible. You have to look at this and say, yeah, they could do this. Now, again, every single thing that they do in most of the Ocean movies, there's a completely implausible thing that they do in the second movie.
We're not there technology-wise.
No.
It's just not there. Even up to this date, and I want to say Ocean's 12 isn't that old. I think it's within the past 10 years, if I'm not mistaken.
We still don't have the tech to do what they propose to do. But as for number 11, and certainly number 13, everything that they talk about tech-wise in there is at least possible.
Especially with the whole resonance and everything with the drill. Again, it's really, I'm not pointing anything out, but that is an absolute, that's a real thing. And in fact, that's what architects have to worry about and everything like that
the only thing I can think of from 13 that maybe is not right is the dice.
Why do you say that? Because I feel like they explain that well.
They explained it, but I don't know if the tech is there to actually allow people to do that.
Well, casinos hope it isn't.
Well, we would need somebody who deals with polymers and everything like that. And I know my education's based in biology, and I didn't really dive too much into that kind of stuff.
And
so
even if it was, I doubt just pouring the powder into the mix with the dice would be enough to make it. It would have to be more complex than that.
No, I don't think you're wrong, But I don't think that was that wasn't a spot where I was going to get hung up. And I know we talked in our previous video where, Chad, you specifically, you can get pulled out sometimes. That didn't pull you out, right? Like
that's something that
you just went, okay.
That's something that I've sort of, it's built in the back of my mind over time, but it didn't pull me out of the movie.
And also, I think we talked about this previously. Even if they just want to throw the less details, like the MCU, right? If they're just going to say this is how it is,
sure,
okay. Don't go too much into the science because that's when we'll start to pick it apart. But if you're saying powder goes in, this causes this, and this causes the dice to not have any issues.
Again, it didn't pull me out during the course of the movie. I'll be honest, this is one of those things that I'm literally sitting here right now and saying, would it work that way?
Would it work that way?
And this is years after having seen it. I mean, I'm just literally going, now, would that actually work that way? And I'm not sure that it would.
We're talking about a 20-second maybe clip of it. I mean, maybe even less. Like, literally goes in, boom, that's it.
And it's minor. So, I mean, seriously, they did a good job with plausibility. Logan Lucky, everything in it is plausible. Other heist movies as well that do a pretty good job in terms of the plausibility. I would say, again, that The Italian Job does a pretty decent job on plausibility. There's a few moments that maybe are
some mega suspensions on the cars?
No, I'm not going to necessarily go with that. I'm going to go with some slightly explosive moments.
Okay.
Questioning as to whether things can actually support what they're doing in the aftermath.
What about? I don't think the one guy created Napster though. I really don't think so. I don't think Seth Green has those skills. Robot Chicken, yes.
You're really going to have to watch this movie now. And also...
The remake, if there's another remake.
If you're a younger person and you have no idea what Napster is...
Oh, yeah.
Google it.
Wikipedia.
Morpheus.
Morpheus? Oh, geez.
You don't remember Morpheus?
Yeah.
LimeWire?
Yeah.
We're done now. Yeah. We're going to be done talking about the way we illegally pirated music back in the day, but it is what it is.
And more.
Sure. So those are pretty much our main top points there. Yeah. So we have a couple minutes left.
We do. We actually have a few minutes left. So actually what the last little point that I actually want to talk about is what makes a movie not a heist movie? Because we were doing research pretty much all week. I mean, nothing super crazy, but somebody commented that Raiders of the Lost Ark was a heist movie. And granted, just because something is being stolen does not make it a heist movie. And in that case in point is a movie that something is stolen, but it's not a heist movie.
Well, why is it different?
I think with the 5 points that Chad has, and not that these are definitive by any means, but I think with these 5 points you can see why there's really no twist at the end. Characters, you care about them, but again, I know Indiana Jones has skills.
Sure.
But I would say, again, it's more of an action movie.
But I'll go with a bigger point on this as to why Indiana Jones is not a heist movie.
Please.
They have to find the thing that they're looking for. They're not stealing it from anything. It's an archaeological discovery. It's a treasure hunt. Much like the National Treasure movies.
Yeah. Great movies.
Which did wind up on some lists that I found that people said that was a heist movie. Now, the first National Treasure, there is a heist that happens in it. It happens very early in the movie. And it's very important because the rest of it can't happen without it. But 3/4 of the movie, the remainder of it, is not a heist, it's a treasure hunt.
Right, so, and also, I guess, going back to earlier when we were talking about characters, they aren't so much criminals.
No.
And they're not against the good guy, you know?
Exactly.
It's not that reversal there, where you're rooting for the criminal doing the thing to the good guy, you're doing the opposite. So... They are the good guys.
No, you're absolutely right. And here's what I will say. The bad guys, for as much as I love them being the bad guys, because who doesn't love seeing a Nazi get punched in the face or anything like that, to me, it's safe, it's generic, and it's easy. Not saying you can't use it, but I mean, again, there's a few bad characters in it where it's like, I can't wait to see what happens to him and everything. But you don't necessarily develop that relationship like you would with, like, Terry Benedict in the Ocean's movie, where it's like, okay, I know, you see his inner workings, you see what this guy is like, and it's, you know, it is what it is. I mean, you really see him as, I mean, he's a good guy, essentially. Because Terry Benedict is a good guy. Yeah. I mean, he's a business owner.
He's
no, he is not a good guy though.
No,
but I mean, he would be
stuff.
He would be the classic like. We can't arrest him for doing anything bad, so he's not quote unquote.
He's businessman evil, not like evil. You know?
Right, because
he's mobster evil.
You could say that, but I mean, even to certain people, mobsters are good people. Yes. And I mean, then we're diving into a whole other topic.
Yeah, we're getting Sopranos level.
Oh, but hey, if we want to have a good Godfather podcast and everything, I'm down for that. Oh, I rewatch those regularly every once in a while. And the third one is the worst one, but it doesn't make it a terrible film. But that's neither here nor there. Now, that's basically my spiel on it. I totally agree that National Treasure is a treasure hunt.
Yes.
I would even say that Heist is probably 1/5 of the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, not to doubt, but I mean, like, it really is a smaller portion. So, Ben, I don't really think it's going to be a heist movie.
No.
And not that all of our 5 points make a heist movie. Right. I just think these are the most evident that show you what a heist movie can possibly be.
Yeah.
And I read other lists online. People had a lot more points, but I didn't necessarily agree with all of their points as well, which is why I have my list. So, agree, disagree, comment, let us know what you think.
Yeah, definitely let us know your opinions on what makes a good heist movie, and if you disagree with any of our points, why do you disagree?
Is there a heist movie that we did not say? I want to hear about it, because if there's a heist movie I have not seen, I want to see it. I know Chad wants to see it. We got to get Jeremy into seeing a few.
Yeah, definitely.
Now,
lastly, just to go over, I want you guys to know, and gals, anyone who's watching, all the movies that I watched this week as prep for this. So I watched A Star Wars Story Solo, The Italian Job, both versions. I did watch the 1969 Michael Caine one, Logan Lucky, all 3 of the George Clooney Oceans movies, both of the Now You See Me's, Entrapment.
Oh, yeah.
Really good heist movie. Yeah. Swordfish, which some people might argue, I will say that's a heist movie. It's more digital, but I'd classify it as a heist.
It's still a heist.
And Sneakers, which is one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah, Sneakers. That's a good one.
So that's all I've got. Let us know what you guys think. Comment below.
My name's Steve.
Jeremy.
And Chad.
Bye.
Thank you.